So, have you ever just stared at a massive project, like a PhD thesis or some huge deadline, and you just feel completely paralyzed? Your brain feels like a web browser with 100 tabs open, and they're all playing different videos at once. It's that feeling of total overwhelm. And look, for anyone juggling complex work, perfectionism, and maybe a mind that loves to jump around, that chaos feels really, really familiar. Well, what if there was an actual path out of that? A system to manage all that madness? Okay, let's get into it. Here's the roadmap for this explainer. First, we're going to talk about why our brains get so overloaded in the first place. Then, we'll cover the single most important habit you need to escape all that mental clutter. After that, we'll walk through the 5 practical steps for getting control. We'll unlock the secret to beating procrastination. And finally, we'll talk about what it actually feels like to get into a state of effortless, focused flow. All right, so let's start with the root of the problem. Most of us, we treat our minds like an office. We just stuff everything in there. Appointments, brilliant ideas, random worries, endless to-do lists, you name it. But here's the thing. That approach is totally broken. It's actually the main reason we feel so stressed and can't focus. And this quote just nails it, right? All those unprocessed thoughts, those, oh, I should really do that items, they aren't just sitting there quietly. No way. They're like these little enemy outposts that are constantly demanding your attention. It creates this endless internal battle that just drains the energy you need for the deep work you actually want to be doing. And this brings us to the core idea of this whole system, and honestly, it's such a relief. Your brain, it's a fantastic idea generation machine. It's built for creative thinking, but it is an absolutely terrible filing cabinet. I mean, truly awful. Using your mind to store your to-do list is like using a supercomputer to prop open a door. It's just not what it's for. David Allen, the guy behind this, uses this perfect analogy. Think of your short-term memory like a computer's RAM. It's got a super limited capacity, and every single thing you're trying to remember is like an open program. You get too many of these open loops, and your mental RAM just gets maxed out. The whole system slows down, it crashes, and you can't get anything done. But a trusted external system? That's like an infinite hard drive. It frees up all that RAM so you can finally use your brain for what it's good at, processing, not storing. Okay, so if trying to hold everything in our heads is the problem, what's the fix? Well, it's a single, incredibly powerful habit: getting absolutely everything, and I mean everything, out of your head and into a system outside of yourself that you can 100% trust. So let's just define this term, open loop. It's basically anything that's pulling at your attention because it's not finished. It could be buy milk, or it could be finish chapter 3 of my dissertation. The problem is your brain doesn't care. It has no sense of time. So it reminds you to email your supervisor at 3 in the morning, and it reminds you about that literature review when you're trying to watch a movie. And that is where all that nagging background stress comes from. Now, for this whole escape to work, your brain has to fully, completely trust the system. And for that to happen, these 3 rules are totally non-negotiable. First, you have to capture everything, not just the big stuff, every little thing. Second, keep it simple. Don't use a dozen different apps and notebooks. Consolidate into just a few in-baskets. And third, you have to empty those in-baskets regularly. If you don't, your brain will stop trusting the system and it'll go right back to nagging you. So, you've captured all this stuff from your head. Great. Now, what do you do with it? This is where the 5-stage framework comes in. This is the practical engine that gives you that structure you've been craving. And it's so important to see these as 5 separate stages. We just talked about collect, getting it all out. Next up is process, figuring out what each thing is. Then you organize it, put it where it belongs. Review is when you look over your lists to keep them fresh. And finally, you do the work. The biggest mistake people make, especially when they're overwhelmed, is trying to do all 5 of these at once. That's a recipe for disaster. This system saves you by separating them. Man, this quote is such a game changer. Seriously, think about that one thing you're procrastinating on right now. Is it really because you don't have time? Or is it because you're just not totally clear on what exactly you need to do to move it forward? For anyone facing a huge, vague task, the problem isn't the clock. It's the lack of clarity. And that brings us to maybe the single most powerful habit in this whole system. The idea of the next action is the key. It's how you break through that feeling of overwhelm and perfectionism that just feeds procrastination, especially on those big, scary, complicated projects. This is the ultimate antidote to feeling paralyzed. Let's actually try this right now. Just take a second and think, what is that one thing creating the most noise in your head? That paper, that deadline, that tough conversation, the one that's just looming. You got it? Okay. Now, ask yourself this simple but really profound question. Not what do I need to do about it, but what is the very next physical action? Is it opening a new Word document and just typing a title? Is it finding one article on Google Scholar? Is it drafting a 2-sentence email to ask for help? It has to be something physical, something you can see yourself doing. Did you feel that little click, that shift from anxiety to, oh, I could do that? That's the magic. This question forces a decision. It takes this big, scary cloud of, my thesis, and turns it into one tiny, doable step. And for a brain that's just drowning in possibilities, that gives you this immediate, powerful feeling of being back in control. So what's the point of all this? Where does it all lead? Well, it leads to a state where you're fully present, you're focused, and you're in this kind of effortless control, a state where you can finally do your best thinking. In martial arts, they have a term for this, mind like water. Think about a calm pond. If you throw a pebble in it, it doesn't overreact and it doesn't underreact. It just responds with a ripple that's perfectly appropriate to the size of the pebble, and then it goes back to being calm. That's the goal. A clear mind, ready to deal with whatever's in front of you without all the other distractions pulling you away. I just love this metaphor. When a rowing team finds their swing, the boat feels like it's moving by itself. They're not fighting the water anymore, they're working with it. And that's exactly what a good productivity system does for you. It starts to create its own momentum. It replaces all that friction and resistance with the amazing feeling of flow. So let's just recap the big takeaways here. 1. Your brain is for having ideas, not holding them. 2. Get everything out of your head into an external system you absolutely trust. 3. Always define the next physical action. And 4. Keep that trust alive by reviewing your system every week. That's the path to clarity. So as we wrap up, I'll just leave you with this one question. Forget the whole system for a minute. Just focus on this. What is the one tiny next action you can take right now to start clearing your mind? Don't just think about it. Go do it. That one small step is how you start. That's the beginning of the path.